So Simon's in for another?
Simon's in again, yep. Lindy will be in that day-to-day. I don't know if he can play tomorrow. If he's in tomorrow, then Simon will be done with his emergency call-up. But yes, he's back in tonight.
Has there been any discussion about changing the emergency to just...
No, not yet. I think we're too many games left. I mean, we are fighting for bodies, and I think you have to be cognizant of that and think about big picture. So, no.
Is he still better off playing major minutes down there? And
yeah, hard to say. There's probably some bigger things, burning a year, you know, big picture stuff like that, whether it gets past 9 games or not. So I think, you know, that's management. We're playing every available body, and he's the one tonight, and we're excited about it. I think he did some really good things the other day, and there's going to be some growth every minute he can get in this league.
How much Swedish have you picked up this season?
It's funny. You laugh. Like, sometimes I screw them up, so they think I'm blind to every Swede. They think they're all the same. It's a joke around. Well, you guys think all bald guys are the same, so there's a little laugh there. So no, it's all part of it. Really good players. Obviously, a big part of our organization from the past, in the present now, and going forward in the future.
With a guy like Simon, he comes into a group and it's just the natural. I mean, that's not something you could plan. You have all the guys who can speak your native language and everything like that. Do you see an impact on that?
I think it's real. I think there's a comfort level to that. You know, we try to speak as much English as possible here because I think it's healthy. I don't think it's right to speak your native when you're with everyone else. But those guys are alone. They get their little time together. I think it's extremely healthy and comfortable, and I think that's valuable. So I think there's something to that.
Ville tonight, right?
What's that?
Husso tonight?
Yep, Ville tonight and Magnus tomorrow.
Do you put any thought into, I mean, obviously going back to St. Louis, or, I mean, when you decide the goalie?
No, well, we play him again on Thursday. So he'll get one of those two. And no, I just think it was more about Ville coming off, a start not to his standard. And I think just getting him right back in, especially after pulling him there in the third, just getting him right back in. You know, like I said the other day after the game, we're going to get him beyond his threshold. There's going to be nights he does not look sharp like he was not the other night. But there's going to be nights he's sharp. I just think getting him past that comfort level and threshold is going to be very valuable to him going forward.
You've got a couple times this year where you've gone to Albert on the front end of him. Is there, in your mind, like a rhyme or reason?
No, maybe it's just sometimes it's timing on the actual days off, what's on the back end of it, what's on the front end of it, workload. So, no, one of them's getting one of them. It's a back-to-back. A little thought into it, but not a ton.
Has the norm of that dynamic changed for coaches? Like, I feel like it used to be, it was always you go starter gets the first game of the back, starter gets the first game of back-to-back, second guy gets the second game. Have you noticed the trend of that changing?
Yeah, no, hard to say. I just think sometimes it's opponent-based, sometimes it's rest-based, sometimes it's what the schedule looks on the front end or the back end. I don't really think there's that much into it.
Is there still a chance that Fabry could return this season?
That's a great question. I think he may be able to return. I think we're going to get to a point here on what's more valuable for him. A little more time to train and rehab, or getting a handful of games at the end. I know the competitive player in him probably wants those handful of games, so it's probably more a medical expert. I told you, Raymond, he went down. This would be a little different than most injuries, and the fact that we'd want to be extremely cautious with it. So he's skating. There has been some progress made, but I still think they're looking at it from a professional doctor view rather than where he is wanting to play.
Could have had a quarter of the roster tomorrow night with the homecoming to St. Louis. Is that kind of like a motivational thing, or do you think there's chips on the shoulder?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would think guys would probably be motivated. It's just different situations, traded. I mean, obviously, it's gone the other way too. You know, Letty and Verana, who's been great there. I mean, I'm sure it'll be a little to that. I mean, these guys are competitive by nature, so hopefully It is, maybe a little bit different where the two teams are, unfortunately, after the deadline, and where their rosters were from a month ago to where they are now. You don't know what to expect down the stretch, but probably a good question, and hopefully it brings out some competitive spirit.
You're probably not too surprised about Verona as long as he
good player.
Find his groove.
Really happy for him. It's been his track record his whole career. He was in the same situation in Washington where he was being healthy scratched. I wouldn't say out of favor, but a fresh start helped him in Detroit. Came through a similar situation. I mean, he was healthy scratched in Grand Rapids. He had to fight back to get in the lineup here. I just think the fresh start is good for him. But it looks like bigger picture, I think this success he's having is probably a more reflection of where his life is away from the rink, which is great. So not surprised, happy for him, and I'm hoping he can sustain it. Not only through this year, where it's, I'm not going to say meaningless, but hopefully he can contribute to them next year too.
What have you seen from Florida?
Offense, they're one of those scary lineups when you look at the pre-scout and the matchup. If you give them easy offense, they're going to cash in. Got to check. So, and they're pushing. I think they're probably, I don't think they expected to be in this position right now, but the fact they've worked their way to where they are, I think they can see the math is starting to work out for them in that wild card spot, and this is a team pushing. And talked to the guys this morning in our meeting. We got to keep our compete up, because you're going to get some of these teams getting their game in order, pushing for the playoffs, and we saw in the last two games as you look back at Nashville fighting for a playoff spot, Colorado getting their game in order. It's just different. We outchanced both those teams. We played two pretty good games, but got to find a way to flip some of these games against these teams pushing for their season.
You obviously saw them up close when you were in Tampa. I know they've got
Little different feel. Like they were always in Tampa. I mean, last year was different. They were literally the best team. I mean, they won the President's Trophy. I think we got fortunate in the playoffs last year where we caught them in the playoffs, but it's just world-class talent, high-end, difference makers. They're a really good team right now.
We've talked a lot about players finding comfortability and growing the season. What's it been like for the coaching staff? A lot of new faces.
Good, really good. I'm very excited about where the staff is. I'm excited about some of the relationships. Again, the message of we're trying to continue to build this for the future, even into next year, is to our staff too, relationships with our players, what we're asking of our guys down the stretch here. I know there's going to be nights where it's an uncomfortable looking matchup on paper. I mean, the other night was a perfect example. Now we've got guys playing in the top four in their D, and just mistakes found them. It's the reality of it. But we're still trying to build something the right way, and that's our message for everyone, and the same as the staff. So it's a good question, because that's real, and that's an everyday process.
Derek, attention to the win streak Toledo's been on over the last.
They have, just because obviously I'm invested in coach there. That fan base is amazing. Dan Watson is a remarkable coach. He was my assistant for 2 years there. I've seen what he's done since I've left there, but just that was a 500 team not too long ago, and that's a credit to Dan. That's a tough league to be consistent in, because you lose so many pieces, and the fact that they've won 18 in a row is a credit to them. But obviously, Kosa playing at a high level, yes, for sure. Following, invested, no different than Grand Rapids. Talked to Benny in length yesterday. He's going through some similar agony in us. I'm trying to field a roster at this time of year when, on paper, it was pretty exciting for them, and unfortunately, he's never had the roster he had hoped to all year long. So, yeah, I follow all of it.
Derek, when you pull a goal throughout your career, the next time they they're out, are you curious to see the reaction, or do you have an expectation level, or you just don't know?
Yeah, I'm very cautious, as you can probably tell, even this year in pulling goalies. I wouldn't say I've left him in there a little bit, but I think there's a little pride in that. Like, we would never pull Andre in Tampa, and it was more he never wanted to. It was more of a little bit of a pride thing. I've had a couple this year, one out of necessity for the team, but at other times just maybe change momentum of the game. But yeah, of course you want to see how Billy responds. Again, not even on the poll, that was a subpar performance for him with his level of play in the year. And you would want him to be hungry to get back and play the role. It's part of his growth too. So yeah, of course I'm interested to see how he's going to handle tonight.
We've talked about having some of the Red Wings alumni around, but obviously Henrik Zetterberg here this morning, and he brings his kid. Have you been able to have a conversation with him? What's your relationship?
Just saw him on the bench,
Yeah.
and just probably reality. I've always said having these guys around, just within our management team, within our scouting team, having around a little swagger to it. These guys have won. They have unbelievable personalities, and you guys saw the morning skate. There was some pop to it. It was fairly sharp today. You know, it might have had something, you know, simple as him just being around. So, yeah, I think that's a big thing.